So you want to start streaming Super Nintendo, but you're not basic. Maybe you pride yourself on the quality of your stream. You want to stream in the highest quality that you possibly can to give your viewers the best experience possible. Well, pull out your wallet because I'm going to tell you how to make the best damn Super Nintendo stream that you could possibly make. Before we talk about the gear you're going to need, let's talk about the Super Nintendo. If you have a Super Nintendo kicking around your house, you probably have one that looks like this. There are two flavors of this type of Super Nintendo, nicknamed the 2-chip and the 1-chip. The 1-chip is considered slightly better, but it's a lot more rare than the normal 2-chip version that is usually in this style of Super Nintendo. That doesn't really matter anyways, because we are not going to be using a Super Nintendo that looks like this. There's another type of Super Nintendo that they released toward the end of its lifetime, and that's called the Super Nintendo Junior. Now, the good thing about this console is it outputs some of the sharpest picture of all of the Super Nintendo models. The bad part is it does not have RGB output by default. In order to get RGB output from this style of Super Nintendo, you have to do a Super Nintendo RGB mod. And not just any mod, I highly recommend a Voltar RGB mod. Now you have a couple of options. You can do it yourself if you're a DIY type. I actually have a link in my video description of how to do that. Otherwise, you can have one of the many retro console modders do it for you. I highly recommend if you're gonna have someone mod your console, please use one of the recommended modders. I'll leave a few of them in the description too. If you can't be bothered to get a modded Super Nintendo Junior, you can always try to get a 1-chip Super Nintendo off of eBay, but believe me, the quality out of this thing pays for itself. I'm talking pixel perfect, almost emulator quality out of this Super Nintendo. You can check out Retro RGB's page about the differences between the different console versions for more information. Regardless of what console version that you use, you're going to need an RGB cable, otherwise known as a SCART cable. It's called SCART because it has this weird looking, really chonky connector at the end, which is known as SCART. On the other end, it has the normal Nintendo multi-out connector. The SCART cable that I have is made by Retro Access, and it's a super high quality cable. However, Retro Access is becoming more and more hard to get now. They limit the amount of orders that they can take in. Unfortunately, while I think that the quality is really high, chances are you probably won't be able to get one. A decent alternative is the SCART cable made by Insurrection Industries. It's highly recommended by a lot of different people, so that's the one that I would recommend to you. Okay, now that we've got the console and the cables out of the way, let's talk about the next piece you're gonna need, and that's an upscaler. An upscaler is something that takes in a video signal and increases the resolution of that signal, usually based on a multiplier. In my last video, I talked about the RetroTink 2X Mini, which is an awesome, budget-friendly, hassle-free line doubler. But that's not where we're going. We're going into line tripling, quadrupling, and quintupling. This means that we're going to be able to take our 240p signal from the Super Nintendo and output 720p or even 960p. This is sort of a strange time because there are a few upscalers that are coming in the future that are not available yet, such as the OSSC Pro and Mike Chi's secret project, but we're going to stick with the good old OSSC. The OSSC, or open source scan converter, is sort of the tried and true upscaler that a lot of people use nowadays. It can do line doubling, tripling, quadrupling, and quintupling depending on the console that you're inputting. It has both SCART and component input, as well as VGA, and it outputs HDMI. This is perfect for our needs because we need an HDMI source to use with our next item, the capture card. In my basic Super Nintendo streaming video, I used that cheap capture card, but we are not going to use that this time. There are a bunch of different capture cards that can take in 720 or 960p. I'm going to stick with my Elgato HD60 Pro. This setup is really optimized for using two monitors. That's optional. You can game out of the OBS preview window, but I highly recommend getting a second monitor so that you can game on the second monitor and monitor things like your chat and other OBS settings in your other window. The next piece to this setup is an HDMI splitter. In my basic Super Nintendo video, I didn't really care what kind of HDMI splitter. I was just trying to get a good one for the price. But in my case, I actually sprang for one that does 4K at 60 Hertz, so it actually can support HDCP 2.2. Take a minute to think about what other kinds of consoles that you may want to stream. If you're into doing both retro and modern, I would try to get as high quality of an HDMI splitter as possible, because this is the thing that's going to be handling all the signal going to your capture devices as well as your monitor or TV. If this thing can't support all the resolutions and frame rates that you're going to need, then why bother? You might as well get a good one now. That way you don't have to buy another one when you want to stream a more modern console. The last piece to this puzzle is actually optional, and that is an audio extractor. Mine's actually built into my HDMI switch, which is really kind of handy. It can extract the audio from any of the HDMI inputs of that switch, so I can put it to whatever audio source that I want to. You could use your TV or your monitor's headphone output if you want to, but I don't really trust the quality of those outputs. The HDMI switch also supports 4K at 60 Hz. Even though we're not going to be using it, it's good to have a high quality switch in case you want to stream any other consoles. Now that we've gone over the gear, let's talk about how to put all this together. The first thing you're going to do is connect the Super Nintendo to the OSSC using your SCART cable. If you're going to be using two monitors, take an HDMI cable and connect the OSSC to the audio extractor. Take an aux cable and connect your audio extractor to your PC's line in port. Take an HDMI cord from the audio extractor and connect it to the HDMI in of the splitter. Connect one output of the HDMI splitter to your monitor and the other output to your capture card. If you're just going to game out of the preview window instead of using two monitors, just connect your capture card directly to the OSSC. Turn on your Super Nintendo and your OSSC. The OSSC should detect that it has a sync from the Super Nintendo. Using the remote that came with your OSSC, hit the line multi-mode button and hit 4 on the keypad down below. That will select line 4x mode or line quadrupling. Next, in OBS, add a new video capture device. Select your capture card, select custom resolution, and select 1280 by 960. If you're going to be gaming from the OBS preview window, go to Advanced Audio Properties and select Monitor and Output from the Audio Monitoring dropdown. If you're going to be gaming from your second monitor, don't set that setting and instead go into Windows Sound Settings, go over to Recording, right-click Line In and hit Properties, go over to the Listen tab and click Listen to this device. That will let you hear what's coming out of the audio extractor in your headphones so that you can listen to the game while you're broadcasting through OBS. There are a ton of different timing and output settings in the OSSC that can make the picture look even better than what you're seeing here. If you just took your OSSC out of the box, you're in what's called generic mode, but a lot of people will use something called Firebrand X's Profiles, which is a pre-configured setting for a specific console. I'll leave a link to Firebrand X's video about downloading and using his profiles for Super Nintendo. Leave a comment below if you'd like to see me go through setting up those Firebrand X profiles. Leave a like on this video if you thought it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video.